Hello everyone. Uh Today we're gonna react to something again. And once again it's a last minute video. Cue the last minute video intro. I'm getting better. I'm not sick as much anymore, but still pretty sick. We're gonna react to a harsh reality about CM Punk versus heel John Cena. I will clickbait the hell out of this title. I know you clicked it because of that, so yeah.
The ongoing situation between John Cena and CM Punk has the potential to fundamentally disrupt WWE in ways that go far beyond just another marquee match. While both men are veterans with massive legacies, their conflict carries layers of real-life animosity, philosophical disagreement, and fan division that threaten to tear at the very fabric of the company's identity. At its core, this rivalry isn't just about titles or revenge. It's about legacy, control, and truth. If WWE pushes forward with a full-scale program between them, the fallout could shake the company to its core, both internally among its roster and externally with its audience. John Cena represents WWE's corporate lineage, the image of a loyal company man who became the face of the brand through years of dedication, media appearances, and being the embodiment of WWE's sanitized, PG-friendly era. CM Punk, by contrast, has always been the anti-hero, brash, opinionated, and fiercely independent. His 2011 pipe bomb promo didn't just critique his on-screen rivals. It openly challenged WWE's structure, hierarchy, and creative dysfunction. That promo alone turned him into a cult-like symbol of resistance. And that rebellious image hasn't faded over time. If anything, the passage of years has amplified Punk's aura as a disruptor. Cena and Punk represent polar opposites in terms of ethos, and bringing that tension into a modern narrative doesn't just create drama, it calls into question everything WWE has tried to build over the past 2 decades. When CM Punk made his return to WWE, it was seen as a seismic moment not because of nostalgia, but because of the baggage he carried. Punk didn't come back quietly. He returned with a mission, demanding transparency and authenticity in an environment many fans view as overly scripted and disingenuous. By contrast, Cena's recent heel turn felt like the unraveling of his pristine image, a calculated move that shocked longtime fans who had never seen the company's golden boy embrace such darkness. The collision of these two arcs, Punk's truth-seeking with Cena's descent into arrogance and villainy, presents a storyline so volatile that it risks shattering WWE's established norms. It's a rivalry that forces the company to confront its history of manipulation, favoritism, and superficiality, all while walking a tightrope of fan expectations. The first way this feud could break WWE is by unearthing suppressed controversies and grievances that the company has long tried to bury. CM Punk has never hesitated to speak openly about backstage politics, medical negligence, or creative incompetence. If these elements are woven into the storyline, even indirectly, it could reawaken real-world criticisms that hurt WWE's credibility. Cena, now embracing a darker persona, might not shy away from retaliating with barbs of his own. That kind of unscripted energy may thrill viewers initially, but carries the risk of derailing WWE's carefully curated image. Sponsors, partners, and media outlets who prefer a more controlled narrative may balk at this sort of chaos. What begins as compelling drama could rapidly evolve into a reputational hazard. Another destabilizing aspect is the polarizing nature of both stars. John Cena, even in his heel form, commands a vast following of loyal fans who grew up idolizing him. Punk, meanwhile, inspires fervent support from a more jaded, anti-establishment segment of the audience. If their feud escalates and fans choose sides with the intensity typical of wrestling tribalism, WWE may find itself fostering internal civil war. Live crowds could devolve into hostile battlegrounds, not in the fun, participatory way that enhances entertainment, but in ways that compromise safety and event cohesion. The risk is that WWE ends up alienating a significant portion of its base depending on how the narrative unfolds and who is perceived to be the true face of justice. This situation also has the potential to undermine WWE's locker room morale. Both Cena and Punk are larger-than-life personalities who command respect and attention. But not everyone backstage and Punk are larger.
Someone clip his face, please. I need this.
Than life personalities who command respect and attention. But not everyone backstage agrees with their tactics or philosophies. Punk's history of butting heads with management and fellow performers is well documented. Cena, for all his outward professionalism, has long been criticized for manipulating his creative direction and bearing talent perceived as threats. Putting them at the center of the company once again might reignite old tensions or create new fractures among wrestlers who feel overlooked, manipulated, or marginalized. Younger stars who have fought hard to climb the ranks may see this as another instance of WWE favoring legends at the expense of current momentum. What makes the Cena versus Punk dynamic even more volatile is the blurred line between fiction and reality. Wrestling thrives when it dips into real emotions, but the Cena-Punk conflict may go too far. Their shared history includes legitimate personal animosity and public digs that have lasted for years. The storyline leans heavily into those past grievances. It could become less about performance and more about personal demolition. There's a very real chance that professional boundaries could erode, leading to unplanned shoot comments or off-script actions that create a toxic work environment. In that sense, WWE wouldn't just be gambling with ratings, it would be gambling with its own professional infrastructure. The match itself, if it happens, could be so hyped and layered with meaning that it overshadows the rest of the roster and derails long-term planning. WWE thrives on cyclical storytelling, introducing new stars while phasing out others. But a feud of this magnitude sucks. WWE thrives.
Why was he there? He had nothing in the story to tell. And Fiend's an asshole song. If you like it, get a life. Fucking NPC.
On cyclical storytelling, introducing new stars while phasing out others.
It's the Tooth Fairy.
A feud of this magnitude sucks up all creative oxygen, leaving little room for parallel narratives to flourish. It's not hard to imagine every other match feeling inconsequential in comparison. Wrestlers like Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, or even Roman Reigns might find themselves on the sidelines of fan attention, despite their own compelling stories. This overconcentration on Cena and Punk could ultimately damage WWE's long-term viability by stalling the development.
I knew I was underwater. I just didn't realize I was this underwater.
Of future stars. Financially, this feud could create short-term spikes, but long-term instability. Merch sales, pay-per-view buys, and streaming metrics would likely soar during the build-up. But if the narrative turns sour, if fans become disillusioned with how the company handles Punk's underdog persona, or Cena's newfound cruelty, those same metrics could nosedive. Punk's supporters are especially vocal and quick to withdraw support if they sense betrayal or exploitation. If WWE mishandles Punk's arc, fans may boycott shows, cancel subscriptions, or flood social media with negative sentiment. In an era where public perception directly influences business success, this kind of backlash could have significant financial ramifications. Another concern is the looming shadow of The Rock, who has recently been reinserted into the WWE landscape and a powerful role both on-screen and off. His involvement complicates everything, especially since his ties to Cena and potential backstage influence could marginalize Punk. Fans already speculate that Punk is being sidelined or sabotaged in favor of more corporate-friendly stars. If that perception gains traction, the entire feud could implode into a controversy about WWE's decision-making, transparency, and fairness. It would no longer be just a story about two rivals. It would be a referendum on the company's priorities and integrity. From a narrative standpoint, WWE may find itself boxed into a corner. Cena's heel turn has been positioned as monumental, but it's still in its infancy. If he loses, find itself boxed into a corner. Priorities and integrity. From a narrative standpoint, WWE may find itself boxed into a corner. Cena's heel turn has been positioned as monumental, but it's still in its infancy. If he loses to Punk, does that neuter his menace too soon? On the other hand, if Punk loses, does that affirm the very power structures he spent his entire career fighting against? Either outcome risks alienating a large faction of fans. Booking this rivalry requires threading a needle so precise that even the most seasoned writers may falter. A single misstep could unravel months of effort and damage the credibility of everyone involved. Or still, it could feed into the cynicism that already exists among parts of the fan base about WWE's creative consistency. Social media is another arena where this feud could become destructive. Both Cena and Punk command massive online followings, and their fans are some of the most vocal in the industry. Any provocative comment, vague post, or interview quote could ignite digital firestorms that spiral beyond WWE's control. These flame wars risk attracting the wrong kind of attention from journalists to activist groups who may interpret storyline elements as problematic or inappropriate. WWE has faced backlash before for controversial content, but this situation is uniquely combustible because of the deep-rooted emotional investment from the audience. Even within WWE's corporate structure, the Cena versus Punk feud may sow discord. Executives, board members, and shareholders may not all agree on how to handle the situation. If The Rock, who has influence in TKO's boardroom, pushes for a direction that marginalizes Punk, that could lead to internal power struggles. The balance between entertainment and corporate strategy is delicate, and a feud this polarizing could upset that balance. Decisions made in service of the story might clash with business objectives, causing confusion or even dissent among leadership. There's also the risk of creative stagnation after the feud concludes. If Cena versus Punk delivers a story so epic and all-consuming that nothing else compares, where does WWE go from there? Every storyline that follows would inevitably be measured against it. The company may inadvertently set a bar so high that it becomes impossible to meet in subsequent years. That could lead to a creative drought where innovation suffers and storytelling becomes derivative. WWE has faced this problem before, most notably after the conclusion of major arcs like the Attitude Era or the end of The Undertaker's streak. Cena versus Punk, if not carefully navigated, could create a similar void. Moreover, injuries or unforeseen real-world complications could derail the feud entirely. Both Punk and Cena are not at the physical peaks of their careers. Punk has already dealt with serious injuries since returning, and Cena has a history of wrestling through wear and tear. If either man suffers a setback mid-feud, WWE could be left with an unfinished arc that frustrates fans and undermines months of planning. The logistical demands of such a high-stakes rivalry amplify the risk of disappointment if reality doesn't cooperate. Finally, there's the philosophical question of what WWE wants to be. Cena versus Punk encapsulates two conflicting visions of professional wrestling. Cena represents spectacle, loyalty, and mainstream appeal. Punk symbolizes authenticity, rebellion, and moral clarity. If WWE aligns too closely with one side, it implicitly rejects the other. That rejection could alienate half its fan base. If it tries to straddle both sides, it may fail to deliver a coherent or satisfying conclusion. In trying to accommodate too many perspectives, WWE could dilute the potency of its most compelling storyline in years. Adding to the combustible nature of the John Cena versus CM Punk rivalry is the geographical and political context in which WWE plans to stage this showdown: Saudi Arabia. The setting introduces another layer of complexity that makes this match not just creatively and emotionally challenging, but also ethically and logistically fraught. The Saudi Arabian government's involvement in WWE's premium live events under the long-standing partnership deal signed in 2018 has always generated controversy among fans, wrestlers, and global media. CM Punk's well-documented stance on moral and ethical issues, along with his outspoken nature, makes this specific location one of the most difficult environments imaginable for this particular match to happen smoothly. CM Punk has always stood apart in the wrestling world because of his unwavering commitment to his values and refusal to participate in ventures that contradict his personal beliefs. His rejection of past Saudi events is not just a rumor, it's part of his documented history. When Punk was still under contract with WWE in the early 2010s, the company had not yet formalized its Saudi partnership, but by the time he was approached in later years to return, and as offers began to circulate, his response remained consistent. He had no interest in working shows funded by regimes with controversial human rights records. Punk, being an extremely vocal advocate for transparency, LGBTQ+ rights, and journalistic integrity, finds himself ideologically opposed to much of what the Saudi government represents. This creates a monumental dilemma if WWE insists on pushing forward with this match at Night of Champions in Riyadh. The Cena versus Punk feud is a powder keg of emotion, history, ideology, and ambition. It can't be treated like just another main event because it represents something deeper: a collision of values, a challenge to authority, and a potential redefinition of WWE's identity. If executed with surgical precision, it could usher in a new golden age of storytelling. But if mishandled even slightly, it could fracture the fan base, destabilize the locker room, and damage the brand's integrity in ways that take years to repair. Cena and Punk may draw crowds, generate buzz, and sell merchandise, but they also carry the power to unravel everything WWE has built. That's not just a match, it's a reckoning.
Nothing else to say. That's it for this video. See you next time. Peace.